My name's Wayne Robertson. This is my wife, Kim. We're from Gulf Shores. And to start at the very beginning of the event, October the 27th, which was a Saturday, my son and I were at the Jack Edwards Airport. We were there for the AOPA fly-in, just watching the airplanes and walking around, seeing the different vendors that they had. Everything was fine. Totally relaxed day. It was a beautiful day. We got done with that about 2:30, and he had followed me over there to the airport and parked at our warehouse, which was behind the airport. So when we left the airport, I was taking him back over to his Jeep, which is basically just around the corner. I felt some weird sensations when I was making left turns that I couldn't quite make it, so I would just compensate with my right hand. And when we got to the turn in for the warehouse, I was trying to turn in and I couldn't make it. I dropped my phone. I don't even know what my phone was doing, where it was at. It wasn't in my hand. I wasn't talking and driving. But I did get in there, and my son made a remark about wrecking the car and breaking my phone all at the same time. So we pull up, and he goes into the warehouse to talk to one of the guys that was in the warehouse. And I tried to get out of the car, and all I could do was reach over with my left hand, but I couldn't turn my hand to grab the handle to open it. And I thought that was weird. I was just kind of patting the door. So I reached over with my right hand and opened the door, pushed it open, and I'm going to get out. My left leg didn't do anything. So I had to physically pick my left leg up, set it outside, and then stand up as good as I could on one leg anyway. So I stood up and made it around to the front of the car. There was a lawn chair outside. I plopped down in the lawn chair, and like any reasonable person, I pulled out my phone again and started Googling what heart attack symptoms felt like, because I felt like that'd be good information enough. Well, Google didn't want to help me out on that at all. So I called my son, and he came out of the warehouse and recognized immediately what was going on. And the gentleman that he was in there talking to did as well. He had medical training for offshore rigs. So they weren't in the panic mode. I told them to call Mom. They said to call 911. So I was full of all of the right answers that day. They called 911 first, and I really feel like God had placed all the right people in all the right places that day, starting with my son. Being an air show, well, not really an air show, but involving planes, the first responders were just around the corner, and they were there within, it felt like seconds. They looked up and they were there. And they, of course, recognized what was going on. And they called for an ambulance. The ambulance that they would normally talk to was over in Pensacola, was too far out, so they called their ambulance, again, right around the corner there at the airport, and looked up and they were there. I think total from the time I sat down in that lawn chair to when we were in the ambulance, my wife and I leaving, was about 15 minutes. It was incredible. The guys were super great. Started a line on me immediately and called the hospital. And Kim can tell you more about the ride there, since I wasn't up front. She got to see all the exciting sights going to the hospital. We got to the hospital, and they rolled me right in. I can't remember all the sequence of events. They did a CT scan to make sure I didn't have a brain bleed, and did not. And then I was teleconferenced with a gentleman in South Carolina that told me all of the things that were going on, and told me about a drug called TPA, and said that this is a fantastic drug. It's a miracle worker, or it won't do anything. That's pretty much what this does, is thin your blood, and it will either do exactly what it's supposed to, or there's no effect, but it has to be done within 3 hours. And he told me some other things about it, and I looked at Kim and I said, I'm not really crazy about walking on one leg. So we went ahead and did it, and literally within 30 seconds to 60 seconds, my arm just popped up. Because prior to that, I had been sitting there looking at my hand, saying, move, and it wouldn't do a single thing. I couldn't do anything with my toes, my leg, or anything. But it popped up, and there it was. And then I started moving my fingers. So I thought, hey, I should do my leg. I pulled my leg up and my toes, and it was all back. It was all, and there was no rush of blood. There was no anything. It was just all of a sudden, it's just working again. And of course the ER erupted with cheers and clapping. And I think that's when it really hit me that I was in bad trouble. And actually one of the nurses there said, you know, I think before I had the TPA, it said that I think you're going to come out of this fine. You may need some therapy to learn how to swallow and to eat again. I said, that doesn't sound like fun. He said, so you should be okay in a couple of months. And thankfully that didn't come out. I actually was able to get up off the bed and get in the wheelchair on my own and be wheeled up to intensive care, and then get out of the chair again and get up in the bed there. The nurse up there said, wow, I'm going to like having you as a patient because I never have anybody that I don't have to pick up. And so I spent the night there, and he took fantastic care of me. Everybody at the hospital was amazing. And it really helped me get through the whole thing. I got better, and we went home the next day. And I feel no different today than I did the day before it happened. It's just a miracle. And I thank everybody at the hospital for everything they did and how quickly they did it. Because again, from the time it happened, I realized there was something going on. 2 hours later, I had the drug TPA. And 1 minute later, after that, I was well.
I'm Kim, I'm Wayne's wife, and it's not a lot of fun to get a phone call at 4 o'clock in the afternoon that says, Mom, get to the warehouse right now. Something's wrong with Dad. We're on the phone with 911. And then my son hung up, and I didn't know what was going on. So I get in the vehicle and I get to the warehouse, and I arrived there exactly as they were closing the back doors of the ambulance. My son yelled, this is his wife. And they said, she better hurry. So I ran, got in the ambulance, and one of the first things I learned is please don't drive in the left-hand lane. Please look in your rearview mirror. And if there's an ambulance coming, get out of the way. The whole time I'm going, move out of the way, move out of the way. And we were having to stop, go on the grass. And at one point, the gentleman driving the ambulance said, look at that. That license plate was a firefighter's license plate. I didn't even pull over. So I learned, please yield to ambulances. So we got to the hospital, and they tell me to go in a different entrance. And I felt like I had just gotten in there and sat down. And my son arrives at the hospital, and he says, what's going on? And I said, well, they took him back to the back already. And it was just seemed like minutes that they were coming out and saying, you can come back here. And so I'm in the trauma room with him. The whole time he's verbal, so he's cracking jokes with everybody in the emergency room. He asked one of the nurses if the wires made him look fat. And so he's laughing, and I've got some water in my hand, and I'm doing like this, spilling water all down me because I'm just so nervous and shaken. And when he had the drug TPA, literally, I was watching the clock, and it was 30 seconds when his hand popped up. And we didn't realize at that point the importance of how fast that happened until everybody in the emergency rooms hollering, hooting, high-fiving, and calling other doctors over to see what happened. And then a nurse came in and he waves at her and she's, oh my goodness, and she's yelling. And I think that point in time is when we realize, wow, this doesn't normally happen. But it's important, very important, to get there on time. Don't try to Google symptoms, call 911. Make sure that you get there on time. And it's really unbelievable after the fact to have read the things I have about stroke, that he had a stroke at 4 o'clock on a Saturday. At 3 in the afternoon on Sunday, we were sitting in our living room. And it was all because of the care he got.
We as a community are so blessed to have South Baldwin Medical Center here, not very far from the beach where a lot of stuff happens. And we have such a fantastic crew of doctors, nurses, and people who run that place. And then we can't forget the first responders that we living on the beach see how quickly they come all the time up and down the roads. And the ambulances, all those people are so well trained and they love their jobs, and you can tell that. If they didn't love their jobs, none of this would happen. We're so thankful for every one of those and South Baldwin.